Hello and welcome to Kerbal Surstram. I apologize for the mic quality. Hopefully it's not too much noticeable, but it might be. Today we're taking a look at a design that I made that is a Mitsubishi F-1 fighter jet. This is the first work in progress that I saved. Basically, I wanted to, before doing anything else, see if I could get the engines a way that I really liked, and I did succeed here, although you'll notice this bit of clipping here that I really don't like, and I did change the arrangement of these a bit later, and you can see I also got the vertical stabilizer, and I started with the BD Armory, what's it called, radome. And for the second work in progress, I just wanted to make sure that the double clipped engines would actually both fire, so I just have some intakes on there and some wheels temporarily, just making sure that both engines will work properly, which I actually forgot to do. And at this point I was trying a different tailplane, but this is hideous, as you can probably tell. So I switched it to basically copying the vertical tailplane and modifying it slightly. Also you can see, I added a second bit to the vertical stabilizer. And was this before or after I tweaked the engine placement slightly? I think this is before, because I not only tweaked this to move back a little bit, essentially, but I also angled things slightly. Here we have where I was just starting to think about what the wings would look like, and oh yes, the engines have definitely... have they been moved? It's really hard to tell, because it's a very slight thing, but essentially these... on the final version, they're not angled perfectly, they're actually splayed out slightly, and then these are slightly splayed back to normal to make the engines a little wider apart and able to it worked out better for positioning, essentially. But yeah, I was just starting to work on the wing idea. The work in progress 6, nope, is where I was like, how can I get the wing to look right? And I tried using this panel initially, but it's just like, that's not working. And I tried switching to this, this Elevon, and it wasn't working out, so I named it Nope. The work in progress 7 is where I finally realized I hadn't actually tested the engines, so I put those landing gear back on to test the engines. And, oh yes, and I also started work on this kind of streamlining the top of the fuselage bit up here, although this is, like, not correct. It's okay for this part, but you'll see in the final version that got changed. At this point, let's see. Oh yes, at this point I changed the engines how I wanted to, and if you look... yeah, it's extremely subtle, so I won't be surprised if you can't even tell, but these are angled slightly in. Yeah, you can tell if you look at the green line, the green line isn't perfectly straight here. And if you look at this, it's different. And so these are perfectly straight, so the engines are still aligned perfectly straight out the back, but the front is angled in slightly. Work in progress 8 was about wing positioning and trying to get the shape of the wing as best I could, and I was pretty happy with this, and the interesting thing about it is that it accidentally lines up perfectly. At this point I wasn't looking at the lift and center of mass. Also, so this is one thing that is inaccurate about this design, these flaps down here, which they are used as flaps, and the reason it's inaccurate is, well, actually, for all I know, it may be accurate. It's probably not, though. The real thing doesn't have those. But I positioned it down here to kind of cover up this unsightly seam, because that's the thing about clipping. See, I don't like it when it's super obvious like this. Like, these lines disappear into nowhere and don't quite match up, and it doesn't make sense. And then here, where you got this weird little angle. But like things like the very edge of this, okay, I messed up slightly here. You can see where that's clipping through in a weird way right there. But... like from the top, this looks like this line was meant to be here. This, there's a slight bit there that's not the best, but it mostly looks like it could have been put there intentionally like that to begin with. Also, I have no idea how that got there. That was not there. I don't know what went wrong. Oh, you know what? I did that just now when I was moving that off to show you that. I accidentally placed it back there and didn't even notice. Anyhow, the work in progress 9, I was trying to think of ways to cover up the unsightly seam on the end there, and I decided to go with a Communicatron dish. Of course, this one is slightly not attached properly, and you can see that edge there, and I really don't like that. I hadn't noticed it yet. But then I did notice it, and I had to change that. Work in progress 10, I got the landing gear pretty much set up. I put in these little I-beams to kind of hide, well, I'll just take them off to show you, to hide this clippingness right here with that whatchamacallit, elevon. That's it's a stationary elevon, but yeah, I hid that, and you can see I use the I-beams here to align the whatchamacallit, to align the wheels properly, because there is no alignment tool in KSP, and that can often be very difficult to get right. And I left it on here in this work in progress so you could see how I did that. I actually normally do it by eye and trial and error, but this time around I was like, nah, I want to get this shit right. And while I thought I was done with that version, I ended up repositioning these to get them to be more seamless. As you can see, it actually goes all the way in there. It doesn't got that weird ugly edge. Let's see, what else did I work on? I think the landing gear were probably positioned a little wider in this version. And also, oh yes, I forgot about this. So the biggest thing here, as you can see, I've added another piece of fuselage and lengthened the whole thing. Now this version is before I repositioned everything, I believe. Yeah, I think this is before I repositioned everything. And so it's you see this whole mess is still basically how it was at this point with the work in progress 12. I worked on correcting the back here, but then I realized I was doing something kind of stupid, because the back of the Mitsubishi F-1 does not really have this kink in it. It does not look like that. So I realized I was going to have to change that. I did not notice at the time, but I also needed to move these landing gear and change the spring and damper strength, which was a little frustrating to get right, but I got it as close as I could. And this is the last work in progress version. You can see I've added the intakes in. The kink in the back is still there because I fixed that kind of in retrospect. The wheels have been splayed out a little bit longer, and the spring and damper have been changed to make that work out. But this is pretty close to how it is. And here we have the final version. Oh yes, I forgot about that. I added a drop tank underneath, which has this weird screw sticking out of it at the back here because of just trying to get things to fit without clipping together. You also notice this tank is actually slightly angled, if you didn't notice that. Oh yeah, I also added these fins afterwards because I realized it was supposed to have some vertical fins on the back there, and it didn't have them. They're slightly too big, but if I push them any further in, they're going to stick out the top here, and obviously we don't want that. The wings have been positioned a little bit better. You can see that this back piece is just a straight line down. And that's pretty much everything at this point. It was just some small tweaks, and I may or may not have repositioned these slightly, but I don't think I did, because they were pretty much, like, once I put them in there the first time, they were perfectly how I wanted them. And this is the Mitsubishi F-1 fighter. I also completely forgot to notice where I changed the nose cone from the radome back to a bit of an NCS adapter and an avionics hub. You probably noticed that. If you didn't, too bad. I don't know, but yeah, I didn't actually. I actually decided to go against that. Oh yes, I also forgot to mention that we have these whatchamacallit, the hard points on the wings here. So we do actually have hard points to attach munitions to. So I'm just gonna fly it a little bit, and you can see it doesn't have the best acceleration. You know, it takes a little while to take off, but what do you expect from two Junos on this fairly large craft for just having two Junos on it? It is actually a pretty substantial amount of weight on here. Of course, the drop tank does not help with the performance any. I'd like to also point out at this time that the authority limiter, so you can see on the pitch axis we have authority set quite high. On the yaw axis we have it a little high, and then on the roll axis we actually have it cut quite low, and that's because this thing had a tendency to over roll and be hard to correct for and lead to very easily pilot induced oscillations with the roll the way it was before. So I did modify that. And are those clipping? Yeah, they are slightly. Oh well. We'll just pretend that's not happening. I normally try to avoid that kind of thing, but shh. And then you can see the small hard points can be, of course, ejected away. And so it doesn't have the best performance. It's not really meant to be a dogfighter anyhow, so I'm not upset about that at all. I feel like it fits what it is supposed to be. Or maybe it was supposed to be a dogfighter. I don't know. The pictures I saw of it were definitely air-to-ground missions, so I assumed it's kind of not meant to be a dogfighter. But I'm going to show you what I did with the BD Armory side of things. So first we just have the basic BD Armory implementation, which adds a gun here. I'm not 100% sure if that's the correct location for the gun, but that's where I put it. We have some ammo over here. The whatchamacallit, the drop tank here, you might have noticed it's actually on a hard point, so you can change it out to something else if you would like. You can see I've added a little adapter here, and that is there for a very important reason that you'll see in a minute. And I added another rail here, and I was very careful to make it so that these rails do not clip into, into our little, flaps right there. And then you can see we have the rails on the end of the wing. We have an AI computer and a, weapon manager there. The radome is back at the front like it should be. And we have a flare launcher right here. I don't know if this thing is actually supposed to have flares or not, but it does now. There's a complaint about the landing gear thing up here, and then you can see we have next weapon, fire weapon, flare, and flaps. Same controls for the stock one on the flaps. Everything else obviously is BD Armory. Now I forget what SEED actually stands for, but it essentially is searching for enemy radar and destroying it. And so you can see we have the harm missiles down here, and those are hard anti-radiation missile or something like that. That's what it stands for, something like that. I forget what the H is, but it's anti-radiation missile. And so these target radar and take out radar sites. And you can see this bit here, if it wasn't there, this would be clipping into the wing a bit. And you also notice it's mounted quite far back on the rail there, and that's intentional to get it to look closer to an image that I was referencing in designing this. And you can see we got 2 bombs here and some sidewinders on the wingtips, and those are all based on that reference. And then I have one more version which I just called B, but really I guess should be a long-range ground attack is what it's really for, because we got the rocket pods on the wings, we got some drop tanks. We got 2 of these big drop tanks on the wings instead of one under the center line, so that you can go a bit further. Sidewinder, of course. And we got 4 Mark 82s along the bottom, which required moving the rail back a little bit and putting a second rail up here. And normally I try not to change the hardpoints on any particular variant, other than perhaps sometimes I'll adjust the adjustable missile rails, but in this particular case I just saw an image that was like this and I wanted to do it as its own little version, so I did it. Oops, I kind of messed up the landing gear on this one, so I'm going to try and cycle that a couple times. And there we go, so it should start going, everything should start working pretty well. As this is the heaviest variant, because it's got 2 drop tanks on it instead of just 1, as well as, same number of bombs as the other version, and I don't know what the weight of these Hydra rocket pods, oh yes, it is a Hydra, yes! The Hydra rocket pods compared to the, what was the other thing, the harm missiles, I don't know what their relative weight and drag are, so I don't know exactly how they compare, but just with the added fuel tanks of having 2 drop tanks on here, this is definitely more mass to lift into the air than the other version. So this one is definitely the one that's a bit harder to take off, get into the air, get flying. And I don't know what the altitude that you can fly this at is, honestly, or the speed that you can fly it at, because it is very limited by those Juno engines, of course. But overall, I think job fairly well done. I do very much enjoy the way this replica came out. Of course, I'm judging my own stuff, so you can't really take what I say with any bit of validity necessarily. But it is nice. Oh, excuse me, I had to cut there for a moment because I had to sneeze. Oh, and I've just accidentally dropped 3 and now 4 of my Mark 82s at low altitude, which is probably not good for me. Oh dear, I accidentally overrolled. Fortunately, I did not get myself injured with that. And you can see we still have our drop tanks, which honestly, if you were in combat, you would not have. Oops, you would not have your drop tanks. And of course, we have our Vulcan. And there go the drop tanks. It's quite by accident, but I noticed that my drop tank design for this craft, actually, I was just hitting the wrong button there, which is why I suddenly took a dive, because my dumb self got the controls backwards for a moment there. I noticed that those tanks, they actually drop off really smoothly, which I'm quite happy with. And I'd like to demonstrate that again, so I'm going to launch again. But first, I want to make a tiny complaint. This jettison thing, there's no action group for that. I wanted to make a jettison action group so that you could jettison those after use, but there's no action group for that actually, so I couldn't, which made me sad. So hopefully you saw how well these tanks dropped off when I had them on the wings. they kind of just dipped down and went away. But I'm going to open up the seed version because this has the centerline tank, and because I didn't actually fly it. And I'm just going to quickly demonstrate the tank on this one. Oh yeah, I forgot to... Yeah, the landing gear. That's basically what the note in the description said. Is that the landing gear, because they're kind of, to be honest, kind of shitty the way Squad implemented wheels. That it would be better to toggle the landing gear a couple of times before you engage SAS as well, because whatchamacallit, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, they don't work that well, and it's unfortunate. So we got aim 9s, of course, as always, and we got the 2 harms. Of course, I have nothing locked right now, so they're just gonna kind of... Oh yeah, they're pretty unstable and will crash right away. And of course, we can fire our Mark 82s. Did I put the landing gear up? Yes, I did. Good. Wow, that was a pretty good explosion. Oh, look at that. There's that glitch again. Yeah, for some reason there's a few glitches with BD Armory continued, but nothing to be worried about too much. Anyhow, I'm going to kind of set us up to get a little bit more speed, a little more altitude, and then I'm going to drop this tank to show you how it very cleanly separates. Alright, so here we go. See, it just dives down a little bit and then goes down. See, because drop tanks in real life and in KSP, if you're not careful, can come up and hit the plane and cause damage or destruction, especially in real life. In KSP, it's not as much a danger, although it can be. And those ones just kind of accidentally work really well, and it's always nice when you accidentally do something really well and you don't have to spend time tweaking it and fixing it. But in any case, hope you enjoyed the design. Thanks for watching. It's the first one is just stock, the other ones are just BD Armory. So there you go for mods. I figured that was kind of obvious, but just in case it isn't, sorry. And thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you in space.